Welcome to the Advancement Podcast. This is Taylor Schote with Tim Ware, the president of Advancement Coaching and Consulting. Today, we will be discussing practical insights for pastors and church leaders to advance your life, your work, and your ministry. Are you ready to advance?
Sitting in for Taylor Schote today is guest host Chad McAnich.
Welcome to the Advancement Podcast. We're so thankful that you are with us today. Me and Tim Ware sitting in for Taylor Schote, and excited to hear what we're going to talk about today.
So today we're going to be talking about summertime, what to do as a church going into the summer and how that works for us. You've been in ministry 15 years, if I remember correctly, and what generally happens to pastors and church leaders is they talk about the summer slump.
Yep.
And summers are discouraging, and they look forward to their vacation more than they do ministry oftentimes in the summer.
Sure.
I mean, is that not
right.
your experience?
I mean, I don't know that I look forward to the vacation more than ministry, but I definitely looked forward toward the vacation from ministry.
That's true. I think that the reason summers, because the problem with summers, people are going on vacation, and people are in and out, and things are sporadic a little more as far as attendance, and so it does feel like it can be discouraging. But I think the way you have to beat that is the first thing, you just need to be intentional, understand what summer is, and use it as a tool. Understand that it's just a season. And when we think, okay, what can I do that advances the kingdom, advancing the church, and what can I do during that season that actually moves us forward, instead of just going, okay, summer's here.
Yeah.
Let's wait it out. It'll end and we can get back to doing.
Sure.
So I think that's the thing I see in most churches is that churches, other than maybe we do vacation Bible school, that's the only thing we do that's intentional oftentimes during the summer, or we go to church camp. We have some very specific things, VBS, kids camp, youth camp, maybe a missions trip, but that's all we do during the summer. There's nothing designed we're not being intentional about moving the church. We're being semi-intentional about events that we're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, isn't that how you kind of grew up in church?
Yeah, I think knowing that we were going to kind of have a break. There were going to be moments of intensity again. If I was in youth ministry, I knew that I was going to spend a week in June or July at a youth camp. And, same thing if you're in children's ministry, whatever that facet is, going into it, hey, I'm going to dedicate this week. But then after that, I'm going to have some events here and there. But the focus on growth during that season, I don't think is something that the church truly focuses on. It's more of we're going to just maintain until we can get to the fall, and if we can just make it through the summer, then we'll kickstart everything in the fall.
I think one of the observations I've made is that part of the frustration is just not in pastor, but in some of the churches I worked with early on and in growing up, you still got all the Sunday school teachers, where I used to have 5 kids. Now, for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I got 2, I got 1 or none. The slump, these components, they affect everybody because everybody feels it. Yet what we tend to do is we don't lessen the obligation, or we don't lessen the energy, the expectation of energy put into it. Matter of fact, we're going to do that, plus we're going to do camp, plus we're going to do mission trip, plus we're going to do VBS. So who knows, in 3 months, we have 3 to 4 events that take place. So we have the same expectations that we normally have the rest of the year, and we add some extras on top for good measure during a time when people are trying to get away, and oh my goodness, the kids are all home, so parents are, there's a little more stress maybe at home and those kind of things. So part of summer it seems to be imbalanced. It seems out of balance with the rest of the year, and I don't know that we compensate for that very well. And I don't know that most leaders even have considered that component, considered that fact.
Or they think that in pulling back somehow that you've gotten lazy. I remember there was a church growing up that they would do away with something on through the month of July. They would maybe not meet midweek or whatever it was, and it was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they're not meeting. What are they doing? And I think we'll talk a little bit more about that.
So you actually, so when you were growing up, you saw that?
Yeah, I saw that happen, and I thought, wow, well, this is we can't believe that they're giving ground in this season. Maybe when they should be pushing. And so it's interesting to now look at it years down the road and say, wow, they were really making some wise choices about where they were headed. And why didn't we capitalize on some of that as well?
Well, what they were doing is they were looking at resources, and they're looking at energy, and they're looking at those pieces. One of the things that we actually recommend to churches, we've seen it successfully happen. One of the reasons that even our sponsor for this episode, they chose to sponsor this episode because this is has become a value to their church. And it's what we call a summer Sabbath or a summer sabbatical or whatever you want to call it. And it is designed to recognize that there's often a resource decline and an energy decline during that period of time. And why don't we can use that to our advantage, or we can fight it.
Yeah.
And now your phrase is pretty interesting that people say, well, we're giving ground. If it's giving ground, then what we're actually saying is that the Sabbath itself is giving ground.
That's good. And
Scripture, we talked about in one of our early episodes back in the fall, we talked about rest, cycles of rest, and individual and being participating in the Sabbath as individuals. But one of the things we do as leaders, sometimes we guard our own Sabbath, but it's a lot easier because I take Friday off, I take Monday off. That's my Sabbath. As a pastor, I'm working the weekend, but I'm taking that day off. Okay, that's fine. But the flip side is that we expect that the guy that worked all week to give his whole weekend.
Right.
And we're not protecting their Sabbath. We're not guarding their Sabbath for them. So part of this, the idea of the summer Sabbath is let's intentionally use a time for where it's just different. Ministry's just different during that season.
Right.
Okay? It's just, select baseball is going on, and there's a tournament every weekend.
Every weekend.
What do I do about that? I fight it, or I figure out how to work with it. So one of the reasons we recommend this, there are 5 things that I think would benefit from by making intentional. I would say that there's an intentional, I don't want to say pulling back of ministry, but an intentional change in the way we do ministry for that season. Now it's going to mean doing less of something, but it's not less it's not like we're killing something, not all the time, but it's about managing our resources and our energy. It's about taking a step back so that we can hit the fall running.
Right.
So the first thing that's important about this is it actually gives our volunteers time. It gives our volunteers time off, because that Sunday school teacher that all of a sudden was there and had a whole bunch, and now they don't. When the church was smaller, we combined 2 classes.
Right.
But it grew, so we divided them. But now that it's small again. I have one of the pastors that, as we've seen this happen, there are different pastors that do summer Sabbath different ways. So before we get into continue with the 5, let me talk about different patterns. The idea is that you look at your ministries and say, what's the bare minimum? What's the minimum we need to do to keep advancing during this season? One pastor I know, they take 6 weeks off in the middle of the summer.
Yes.
And they don't do Wednesday nights. They don't do Sunday school. They only do Sunday morning service. Now I have another one. They cut out, they cancel all Sunday school classes, and they put all their kids kind of in children's church with a couple of workers, and they do a leadership training time. So they bring all of their leaders in, all their teachers, and everybody comes in, and pastor does leadership training for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
have another pastor that they, as part of their Sabbath, their Wednesday nights, they'll take Wednesday nights off for, I think they did 8 weeks last year. They took 4 off, and then the next 4 they did as family nights, and they all met at the water park, and they all met here. And so it's not that they weren't doing things, but they were just being intentional about doing something different for the season.
Right. Well, and I know in the podcast on taking the Sabbath, being intentional about taking the Sabbath is not being lazy. There's a difference between being lazy and taking a Sabbath. And, it's not lazy to pull back when you're saying the reason I'm pulling back is this very specific purpose. We have a goal in mind, and we have an end game of how we're going to be effective going forward.
Well, what the guys that do this is when we say it gives your volunteers time off. One of the things in episode 13, we talked about recruiting. We talk about doing what we call starts and stops. And so in a start and stop means I recruit a volunteer for this period of time. And if I take that summer, if I have this summer Sabbath in, it means when I'm recruiting a worker or I'm recruiting a teacher, I'm recruiting somebody, if I want to, I can say, hey, I just need you to give me these 8 months or these 9 months or these 10 months. Start here and end here. I've created that gap. And what I have done is I have respected them. And in many cases, if people know ahead of time, if they know in March or April, if we're planning and strategizing, and we can say, this is where we're going to be, you'd be amazed how many people will go, we've created the space where they're going to take vacation.
Right.
We've given them the space where they're all going to be gone, instead of them just randomly disappearing. Now, there's still going to be people that go on the other side because you never know what's going on with families and those things. But you're creating a space and saying, this is your space. I mean, it's a function of caring and loving those volunteers and loving those families and loving those people. It's actually a corporate pastoral moment.
Yeah.
To say, we're going to give you, this is where we expect people to have a time off.
I like how you said that, a corporate pastoral moment. I really like that. So
that's the first thing. I mean, we often love the congregation individually, but when do they experience that corporate moment? So I think the second thing is it creates a moment also to rally the troops for a big day, because if you take a vacation Bible school, usually the people, traditionally, the people that are teaching in vacation Bible school are also the people that are teaching Sunday mornings.
Yeah. Because
they're your teachers. They know the kids, so they just double up over here. And in most churches, a kids crusade, a vacation Bible school, whatever they're kind of a all hands on deck event.
Absolutely.
Because you have so many kids and transitions, and there's so many parts, because you're going to have snacks and you're going to have the stations. It takes a lot of people, and so what you do is you say you allow people to lay down their other responsibilities and focus on this one thing. And now you don't get part of their energy, but you get all of their energy. So you actually get a better event. It's not that we stopped doing ministry; we just did different ministry.
You're focusing it.
Right. So, yeah, we're going to have some people off on vacation, so we're taking what energy we have and we're So I would say that's true about it. If it's a mission trip that takes place in there, whatever you're going to do, there's a ministry. I think you always put a ministry component, a ministry event type thing, whether it's a missions trip or a VBS or whatever. You put it in the middle of that, but it's an opportunity for everybody to come together and put their shoulder to the wheel, one moment, one time, and not have to worry about the rest.
Yeah.
So first is you give them time off. Second, this is a chance to rally the troops. And I said it earlier about creating the space for vacation, but the truth is you eliminate the guilt of taking vacation.
Yeah.
Because I hate, it's the teacher that goes, that's it's like, hey, we're going to be gone that Sunday. I just want you to know, they say it sheepishly, like they're going to get beat down,
right.
And hey, you're going to be gone. Don't feel guilty. I want you to be gone. We created this space so you could leave town.
Right. And as a pastor, I'm going to take those moments, and I'm going to be gone.
That's right.
And because my family is important to me, creating that culture of Sabbath is important to us. And so as a result, I want you to be gone. Matter of fact, I don't just want you to be gone. I need you to be gone.
I expect it.
Because there's the season's coming where we're going to all put our hands on this thing, and we're going to push and give it our very best. So I think creating that expectancy in that culture that, hey, we're going to take this season and in the ebb and pause, and you feel free. I'm empowering you to be released.
I think I like what you said there, because there's oftentimes we have pastors that feel guilty about taking off.
Mm-hmm.
This is the same thing. You've created. You get to model it. I know guys that in 20 and 25 and 30 years of ministry, they'll say they've never missed 2 Sundays in a row.
As if it's some badge.
If it's some badge of honor,
yeah.
I would say it's not a badge of honor that you couldn't, because what you're telling me is that you didn't really plan to relax on your vacation, because you did ministry right up until you left, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And then right as you came off, you're planning your next sermon, or you had to work on your sermon before as part of your vacation.
Yeah.
And to say that it's okay, be guilt-free in this process. I think one of the most critical things or important things about creating this is that it actually gives you the opportunity to make changes. It's the opportunity to make shifts, whether it be in recruiting or if you view the summer as a season of transition. Let's think about the way the American culture works. Your daughter's in the third grade?
Third grade.
Third grade. So, but over the summer, she goes from the third grade to the fourth grade.
Mm-hmm.
The summer is a season of transition.
Yeah, we're going from elementary school to intermediate school this year.
Look at that. So it's a big transition. Yeah. And if we would view it the same way, this is a time we can make transition. This is where if a ministry, whether it be a classroom or a ministry it's not meeting the standard, then this is an opportunity, because we pull our volunteers out.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity for us to change the leader. This is an opportunity for us to change the curriculum. This is because when we come back, it's fresh, new. We can do something different.
Yeah, we maybe even have to change the locks on the door.
Maybe change. That's right. That's absolutely true. That's right. So I think if you realize that it can be a season of transition, because especially if you match it with your recruiting cycle.
Sure.
Because now coming into that, I'm able to say to a volunteer that maybe wasn't working out where we had them, say, you know what, I'm glad we're coming, but over this year, I've realized a better place for them. And I can say, hey, you know what? We feel like during this season, what I'd like you to do is look at doing this. Now I can talk about their gifts and things, and we see that we feel like you could thrive, and the gifts of God. It gives us a chance to make transitions in people, make transitions in ministry, and some ministries are dead, and we're still, and we've got them on life support.
Mm-hmm.
And if we take advantage of a summer Sabbath to just let it die, and it never has to restart.
Yeah.
Now we may restart something in its place, or maybe we don't need that ministry anymore. In the church of 125 that has 2 people in the motorcycle ministry. That want something in the bulletin, that's a great time to let it, what was your kids are young, so Frozen, let it go, let it go.
Yeah.
This is a time to just let it go.
I recently bought flowers for my wife, and after about a week of them being in the house, they started to die.
Yeah.
They started to stink.
Uh-huh.
And she hadn't disposed of them, and I knew why she hadn't disposed of them, because
you only want to buy her flowers very often.
That, and because I bought them, she didn't want to get rid of them, because she knew I would probably make some sort of sarcastic comment or remark. I know it's surprising that she had gotten rid of the flowers that I had bought her. And so I smelled them, the other day and said, I know why she hasn't gotten rid of these. So I tossed them for her. And later she got home that night and I said, hey, just so you know, I took care of those flowers. And I said, was the reason you weren't taking care of them because you were worried how I would, how I would perceive you getting rid of my gift to you? And I think about that in the church. There are some things that we need to dispose of for someone else. Like they may feel, hey, we truly need to step out in this season, or we need to pull back. And they don't know how, because Pastor, you mean so much to us, and serving this church means so much to us that we're hesitant to pull back, or we're hesitant to say, hey, this isn't our focus anymore. This isn't where we're feeling our fit. So we'd like to shift here. And so maybe they won't come to us. And so by doing that, I think we empower. Matter of fact, I know we empower our people to be able to say, hey, you know what? Let me take care of this for you. Because of your honor for me, your love for me, you may not feel comfortable doing this. So I'm going to kind of help in that process. I think that's a very feasible reason why we maybe need to help people. I
really think what you just described in the church under 150, that's much more true than it is in a larger church.
Right.
The larger church gets the more corporate, some of the structural pieces, but that highly relational thing, they don't want to let us down.
Right. Absolutely.
They don't want to let us down, so they'll suffer through those things. And that we need to make sure that by giving them the opportunity to step out, by giving them the opportunity to make a shift, by giving the opportunity to close it down and it be okay.
Yeah.
We're saying we made space for that. And I think the fifth thing that I think is advantageous to this summer sabbatical season, this pulling back season, is that almost every pastor I know has used it as a chance of renewal, because what it says is there's this concept in a lot of churches, especially if they have multiple services, attend one, serve one. So they want people, and the reality is that's not, Jesus said, go to work.
Yeah.
And he made these guys work all the time. And I think that, I had this conversation with a pastor the other day, and he's like, that's their policy, is attend one, serve one, but they're beginning to feel the pressure on their building. And I said, okay, so if you're developing and your people and they're maturing, if they just serve once a month and they serve both services, and you're not having to double up on volunteers twice, so that the person, you have to have, everybody has to be in service the whole day. I said, if they're only there once, then the person who comes to first service doesn't have to stay for second service. You actually create space in your sanctuary. And he said, but they need to. And I said, first of all, why? Because you should be maturing them, you should be helping them, and you should be creating opportunities for them to grow and learn. And what we do is we can replace those 12 Sundays a year that they missed in the sanctuary if we take advantage of a moment like this and say, we're going to pull all our volunteers in and we're going to do significant training. We're going to read a book together. We're going to work on some skill. We're going to give you information. This can be a season where not only we've given them a chance to rest, but we've given them a chance we create a moment for them to receive ministry directly from the leaders.
Yeah, we're investing in you in this season.
Right. So and I think that's another huge piece. And honestly, for everybody that's listening to this and you say, you want us to take 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever, off in the summer, are you crazy? I've never had a church that tried it that didn't continue it. Matter of fact, in almost every church, the pastors come to me the second year and they say, my people in March and April are saying, are we going to do that again this summer? They're now looking forward to it. They're more energized. They're asking questions like, what are we going to learn this year?
Yeah.
So it's the combination of rest and investment and pulling together and shifts that can happen in that make this what could be one of the most intentional advancing moments of the year that pushes you towards the fall. Instead of running into it, instead of us wanting to get there because we're discouraged, we got to get out. I can't wait till we get there. I can't wait till we get there because we're ready.
Yeah.
It's really that it becomes a season of preparation is what it becomes.
Yeah.
So, well, we're about out of time. So what's your takeaway today?
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway for today is just knowing that this is an opportunity that we have in the summer to rally the troops, to really give them that moment of rest, and to know that, hey, in this rest, we're doing this so that we can go forward and we can hit this next season hard. We're going to invest in you. We're going to prepare you for what's coming.
Yeah, that's good. So a question that I would ask the leaders today is, the question we want to leave with you is, what would be what would be the best use of the summer in your local context? Ask yourself that question. How can you be intentional? And what would be the best West? I keep trying to say that. What would be the best way for you to intentionally use the summer in your local ministry context? Thanks.
That's all, folks.
Oh, Lord, help me.
Thank you for joining us today on the Advancement Podcast. The show notes are available on our website at www.advancement.cc, along with other resources. Again, this is Taylor Schode on behalf of Tim Ware and the entire Advancement team. We want you to remember that you are meant to advance.